Hello, and a warm welcome to Living the Dream French Riviera podcast, where each episode features inspiring women who dare to dream big, relocate, and build a fulfilling life here on the French Riviera. I'm your host, Cecile Liconnet. Today I'm joined by Suzanne, who has embraced every twist and turn of life, from her career as a stewardess to starting a creative café and then establishing her cake business here in the south of France. Through it all, she has shaped France into her forever home. Her story is one of creativity, resilience, and finding joy in bringing people together. I can't wait for you to hear it. So thank you for joining us today, Suzanne. I'm really looking forward to hearing your story, what first brought you to the south of France, and how you created your baking business. To give us some context, let's understand when it all began for you. When did you arrive on the Riviera? Where were you coming from? And what was life at the time?
We came to the south of France in August 2000, so 25 years ago, literally. My husband was a pilot for British Airways. I had been a stewardess for British Airways. And as he was a pilot, he could be anywhere. I wanted our children to be bilingual. And so he wanted to be in a ski resort. I wanted to be close to the sea. So we came here, and he can still ski an hour and a half away in Isola and Oran. Our daughter was 22 months and Sam was 4. So obviously Sam spoke no French at all, which was really tough for him. I think as a boy, starting in a French school, it was really, really tough. Adelaide went to a creche. So we started in Ile-Verte, near Valbonne, between Valbonne and Biot, and we rented a house there. It rained for the first 3 months, solidly. My husband was away, so it was really tough. I didn't know anybody. I didn't work for the first year or so, and then I met an American girl and we did some villa management. We were looking after 11 houses. I don't really know, when I look back, I don't really know how I did that with 2 small children and a husband that was never here. And then in 2004, we moved to Singapore, completely different lifestyle. And the children went to the Lycée Français in Singapore, which was still a very French school, even though it was in Singapore. But they had a fantastic facility. It was a beautiful school, because there are international schools in Singapore. Obviously an English school, there's a German school, there's an American school. We had a fantastic time in Singapore. We did a lot of travelling. I made the most of the holidays. But I really missed France, actually, which was ironic because we would meet French people at the lycée and they were all very happy to not be in France, whereas I really did miss France. And we used to come back every summer. We kept a house here in Châteauneuf.
How are you picturing your new life before the move? How did the reality compare?
It was very sociable. It's always interesting when you don't live in your home country, you don't have family around. So your friends become really, really important. They become your support system, really. I wasn't disappointed. I loved the weather, apart from the 3 months when it rained. I had lived in France. I went to school in France, in Tours, in the Loire Valley, when I was 16 for 3 months. And I also did 6 months in university in Neuchâtel in Switzerland. So I did speak, my French isn't bad, it's pretty good actually, which I think really helps. And because the children here, our children, were not in an international school, they were very much in the local French school, I think that really helped all of us.
So now let's explore your professional path before and after relocating. You were a stewardess, then you had a little pause, then you did villa management, then you went to Singapore.
I did. And then I was working in a nail salon, would you believe? Because I've always worked, and I met a really fantastic French lady here, who I've known now for 25 years, and she was a real inspiration. And I wanted to work. It's quite difficult to work in Singapore. And so I did a nail course and worked in a nail salon, in a Singaporean nail salon. And then I met a Welsh girl who had her own salon. And she said, well, why don't you come and work with me? And I said, I'm not very good. And she said, I think you'll be fine. And so she went off and had a baby. So I was running her salon. And that was a very international place, we had a Swiss girl, we had an Indian girl, we had Malay girls, and 99% of our clients were expats, which was really interesting as well because a lot of the ladies couldn't work. They were what they call trailing spouses, and it ended up being a free therapy session every time I did somebody's feet or nails.
It was a 2-in-1 then?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
And then you came back here.
So I came back with the children in 2009. It was the right time to move the children sort of educationally wise. So my son went to boarding school in the UK and my daughter went to the CIV in Valbonne.
And you didn't continue doing nails
I did not, no. Another friend of mine who was an ex-stewardess as well, who was very creative, she suggested that we open a ceramic cafe in Biot. At the time, they were everywhere in the UK, in the States. There were 4 in the whole of France, us being one of them. It was called La Tasse de Couleur in Biot, and I was kind of officer in charge of the cakes, and my business partner was more the creative, artistic side. But in fact, our jobs blurred, certainly in the summer when we were super busy. But that was a really interesting cultural experience. We used to do birthday parties for all sorts of people, different nationalities. We realised that French children actually are not that creative because they're not taught to think outside of the box. So that was super interesting. We had a lovely time. We met some amazing people. We didn't make very much money, and we were known as Les Anglaises in Biot. The Biot Mary was very supportive, but we had a fun time, but we didn't. We had it for 3 years. And so my baking journey kind of evolved when we closed La Tasse du Couleur in 2013. I carried on with my cakes and carried on making cakes for people who used to come to La Tasse du Couleur.
So you didn't start from scratch baking cakes and you already had a clientele?
From the cafe, yes,
the cafe.
Exactly.
So you knew what you were doing?
Well, I did. I mean, we opened the cafe in 2010, and that's when cupcakes were sort of taking the world by storm. And obviously, back then in 2010, you would never find a cupcake in a French boulangerie or patisserie. So we were trying to educate the local population. We used to do a mix of kind of cupcakes, flapjacks, American cookies, and birthday cakes, which again, you couldn't really find in a boulangerie or a patisserie.
The French are very proud of their patisserie, of running in any patisserie. You get a Paris-Brest, a Tropézienne, all those cakes that are part of the heritage. And you arrived with your cupcakes. How did you feel proud, or did you feel a bit small to?
I didn't feel small. I felt that we were educating and opening people's taste buds to something new.
Were the French open to?
They were. It's interesting because as the years have gone by, I've evolved with my baking in terms of, at the time when I first started with our cupcakes, we used American buttercream, or I used American buttercream, which is basically icing sugar and butter, and it's incredibly sweet. And I've realised over the years that the French palate, they're not very sucré at all. So I've changed my recipes and I don't use American buttercream anymore.
Do you make French buttercream now?
I use Swiss meringue buttercream, which has very little sugar. It has pasteurised egg whites and butter, and usually white chocolate or dark chocolate.
Do you feel after all these years, do you feel the trend is starting to change, or are you still quite unique in your offer?
I think I'm still quite unique. There are a few companies, bakeries, individuals who make cupcakes, French ladies. I haven't tasted them. They don't look as nice as mine.
So what were some of the first steps you took to establish your business?
When we opened La Tasse de Couleur, we were an SARL, and when we closed that, I became an auto-entrepreneur. And I just started it as Les Gâteaux Sucrés. And subsequently, I've done my hygiene course, but it's pretty free range, actually.
Is it easier to bake cakes and deliver them than having a place where people are coming?
Absolutely. I would never, ever have a shop again. La Tasse de Couleur taught us a lot of things. One of those would be that it's super expensive, and it's very important for location. When we were in Biot, it was really difficult to park. It was expensive, insurance, electricity, water, all sorts of things. Whereas I bake from my house now, and I deliver.
Do you bake in your own kitchen, or do you have a professional kitchen?
I bake in my own kitchen. I bake there's a room behind the main kitchen. That's where I usually do most of my baking. I have 2 ovens. I have 2 dishwashers. I have 2 KitchenAids. So that's where I do my baking.
So you feel that the hygiene restriction in France allow you to do these things? Yeah.
So far, so good.
Yeah. What about, maybe we want to tell our audience that when we hear barking and we hear some little scratching, you want to introduce...
Yes, well, we do have a dog called Rhubarb, who is a Bernese mountain dog, and she's been quite vocal. She never barks, but she obviously wants to come and say hello to Cecile, which she's not going to do. So apologies for that.
Now, what about French administration? As an auto-entrepreneur, I assume the paperwork is quite easy, but
yes. When
you had the shop, it was a different thing?
Yes, very much so. We obviously when we had the shop, we had a proper accountant. Being an auto-entrepreneur, I pay my own taxes, I pay my social charges myself through URSSAF.
So it's quite straightforward. Yes. Baking is very event-driven. People probably all want their cakes at the same time at the end of the week.
They do.
When it's summer for parties, how do you navigate this?
I try not to take on too many. It really depends. Really depends. And I'm making cakes, as I said earlier, for people that I met when we had the shop, which is 15 years ago. I like people to book early to avoid disappointment, to give me as much time and notice, because if I need to order anything for other decorations, and I've been really lucky recently in the last 4 months, that I've found a French lady that makes my cake toppers and my numbers. She's in Lyon, she's amazing. And another company in Montpellier, I think they are, and they do a lot of edible printing. So if I needed something to be printed on edible sugar paper, then they do that for me. Before, I used to have it done in the UK, but for obvious reasons, that's no longer possible. So that's really helpful, and they are really good at responding in turnaround time. But on average, I would say I do 3 or 4 cakes a week, sometimes more. It really depends. Really depends on the time of year. January is always quite quiet. The summer is quite quiet too, actually, amazingly. Also, it's extremely hot, which cakes really don't like heat too much.
That's the thing also about bringing something new to France. You've touched it. How did you supply the sugar paste? Did it exist in France?
Yes, well, there's a couple of really good French websites. So I used to buy all my supplies in the UK. I still buy all my boxes and all my cake boards. Just had a friend that's driven down, had £300 worth of boxes in their car. That has been really difficult, actually, to navigate Brexit because it's impossible to have things sent from the UK. If they are sent, it's very expensive, and inevitably I have to pay customs duty, which there's a ceiling of a price that people will pay for a cake. I would say also that because of social media, people see cakes on Instagram or Pinterest and they say, I want this cake. Well, it's probably been made by 3 or 4 people. Somebody's made the cake, someone's done the basic decorations, somebody else might be making the models or the figurines, and they're expensive. So I like to use mixed media on my cakes as well. So, for example, this weekend I did a jungle cake, and I did make the lion that went on top of the cake, but I also bought the figurines of the giraffe and a zebra and an elephant, because it's not worth my time. It would take far more time for me to make those figurines than go to Jouet Club or Botanics to buy the animals.
It's different skills, baking,
totally
decorating,
different skills, absolutely. And my skills have evolved as well in terms of making figurines. I quite like the fact that if the cake is for a small child, they get to keep the animals at the end of the day. They don't get thrown in the bin.
That's good. You're making good memories with the cake.
Yeah, exactly.
They remember the cake and they have a little piece of it on their shelves.
Yes, exactly.
Wonderful. So your clients followed you from the cafe. How do you reach to you? Do you get new clients, or do you have enough clients as it is?
A lot of them are word of mouth. I think sometimes I get referral. I work with a chef who does catering, and she does make cakes, but usually she's too busy. So she'll put me forward. I did a couple of big cakes for some yachts this summer because she referred me.
Do you need to adapt your cakes? You said in summer it's really hot, and if you need to take them on a yacht, you have to make some adaptation for this.
They just need to be kept really cold until they're eaten, and the most important thing is for them to be taken out of the fridge at least 45 minutes before you're going to eat them, because they need to be room temperature. But the sort of travelling between me and the final destination, they need to be very cold, yes.
Your company is called Les Gâteaux Sucrés. Are they all sucrés, or do you...
No, they're not. They're not at all. I make I've made a vegan wedding cake this summer. I do gluten-free as well. So I have some excellent recipes that I can adapt. And I am, as I said, very aware that the French palate for the French clients is much less sucré than possibly Americans, for example. I personally would prefer not to eat so much sugar, and so my cakes, I'm very aware of that. So as I said, I don't make American buttercream anymore at all. The Swiss meringue buttercream tastes like vanilla ice cream. It's delicious. So I'd make lots of different I do lots of different things, but mainly I would say desserts, the odd pecan pie for Thanksgiving, meringue pie, lemon meringue pie, using fresh lemons. I use a lot of fresh ingredients. Again, very aware of that. I use organic eggs. I use fresh fruit to make my coulis to go in between my layers of sponge. And I have, as I said, over the years, I've adapted my recipes. I'm a great fan of Pinterest and Instagram, actually. There's some fantastic bakers out there who are very specific for their recipes.
There are several cake makers in the area. Do you feel there's room for everyone?
Yes, definitely. I follow 3 or 4 French bakers here in this area, and we're not in competition, I don't think. A lot of them concentrate on French profiteroles, the traditional French kind of wedding cakes that you would have. I think there's definitely room for everybody.
I'd love to take a moment to reflect on your journey so far. what it has meant to you personally and the lessons you've drawn from building your life and business here. Looking back, what would you do differently, if anything?
I'm not for regrets. I like moving forward. I really enjoy working. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I take my job very seriously. I did have one disaster with a Black Forest Gâteau, which was tricky to make in the first place. And the lady wanted it. She was meant to have it the day after I finished it because it needed to be in the fridge. And she let me know that there was a storm coming and that she needed the cake now. The cake had only just put it in the fridge. I said, it's not going to be that ready. She said, no, I need it now. And I said, okay. And we were actually renting an apartment or a house in Valbonne temporarily. And I had parked in the big car park in Valbonne, and I carried the cake to the car. And I could see as I was driving out of Valbonne, it was beginning to slide. And I probably drove for another 10 minutes, and I called her and I said, I'm really sorry, but you can't have your cake. And she said, but I need my cake. I said, it's not an example of my work, and I'm really sorry, but you can't have it. So, yes, I take my job seriously because I like to treat people the way that I would expect to be treated. And when somebody's paying a lot of money for the cakes, they expect it to be as they wish. And
usually the cake is coming at the end of a meal?
Yes.
Or it's
expectations. The expectations are huge. Yeah. So I don't like to disappoint.
What have you learned about yourself through this journey?
Resilience. I think with my husband, who used to travel a lot, I was by myself a lot with the children. And again, when they were little, in the UK, when it rains, there are things to do when it rains. In France, only latterly now you have soft play areas, but 25 years ago, there really wasn't. So being resourceful, I think, is probably a good description.
Is there anything you wish you'd known before you came to France?
No, I don't think so. I love it. I wish that my son had spoken a bit of French when we first arrived. I think knowing the language, speaking the language, is huge, huge, huge bonus. So I would recommend anybody that was thinking of moving to France to at least take some lessons.
What advice would you give to someone thinking of launching a food business in France?
I think it's think carefully, because it depends what food business you're thinking of. Location is really important. I think when we had the café in Biot, it kind of worked, but in the winter it was very quiet. These villages, a lot of them which are very touristy in the summer, are really, really quiet in the winter. A lot of the shops would close from sort of January through to March, their fermeture annuelle, and we just kept on going.
Weren't you shocked that the world stopped when it was raining here?
Yes, very much so, very much so. And, we would sit in the cafe, and actually my business partner's husband used to say, well, can't you just close, between 12 and 2? And I said, absolutely not. We are not a French business. We are open all the time. We did used to close on a Monday, I have to say. But during the summer, we were open pretty much every day.
Just the two of you running the business?
Yes.
You must, with children?
Yes.
And a travelling husband?
Yeah, well, in fact, my business partner's husband was also a pilot. So, yes, it was... And actually, we chose Biot because my business partner lived at the bottom of the hill, and so my daughter could get the bus from her school to my business partner's house, and she could kind of hang out there while I was finishing off. So it was quite tough, actually, getting up very early, because I used to bake the cupcakes for daily, actually. So they were fresh, getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to be able to be at the shop and open at 10 o'clock.
With cupcakes.
With cupcakes
Spreading.
and other cookies and other things, yes.
Would you say your years as a stewardess has helped you doing long shifts?
Yes, and also meeting people, talking to people. I love meeting new people. I love hearing their stories. And a lot of the people that we met initially at the cafe have become really good friends. A lot of young mummies used to bring their children because there was nowhere else to go for them. So they could just come with the babies. Either they were still in buggies or they were toddlers, and we would do handprints. We used to do babies' handprints, baby feet, birthday parties, soirees in the evening for ladies to come and drink rosé and paint plates. So it was quite sociable. So we really adapted our business to the local community, or certainly the local expat community.
In Singapore, when you were doing nails, you were doing therapy, and here again, it was
Yes.
it was a safe space.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, I think for people who had small children, it was really difficult for them to meet people, and for people with babies. Whereas for me, my daughter was 22 months, so she was old enough to go to the crèche, and my son was in moyenne section. So to have somewhere where nannies or mummies could come with their children to the cafe was really important.
Was there a defining moment when you thought, yes, I've made it?
No, I'm still waiting for that moment.
That's because you're a perfectionist.
Do I want to be more busy? Probably not. I like to take my time. There's a whole process when somebody orders a cake. It's not just, I'd like a cake, this is what I want. So what flavour would you like? What's the name of your child? How old are they? What is the theme of the cake? How many people is the cake for? What is the date? What time do you want it? Am I going to deliver it, or am I going to meet you halfway? Those are the sort of beginnings of somebody ordering a cake. And then my next stage which takes time, is to look at what they want. Do I need to order anything? Do I need to make anything in advance because things need to dry? If I'm making fondant figures or fondant names, then those need to dry. I can't put them straight onto a cake. Not going to work. So I think those are the sort of hidden behind the scenes aspects that other people don't understand, and they take time. And theoretically, they should be factored in to the price. Not always. That's not always the case.
Thank you for explaining this. I imagine everybody just thinks you just get into your kitchen, bake the cake, 2 hours, it's done.
Absolutely. And it's not even 2 hours, because you bake the cake, then it has to... So you make the cake, you bake the cake, it then cools, then you have to put it in the fridge, then you do the first layer of frosting or filling back in the fridge, out of the fridge again, the next lot, depending on whether you're just having the Swiss meringue buttercream or whether you're putting sugar paste or fondant on the outside. That takes time. So it's a real process, actually. It's not a 2 hour. I think cupcakes are much easier.
Aren't you ever tired to bake cakes? I have a friend, you might know her, an American friend who also bakes cakes, and she was so grateful one day when I invited her to my place for a Sunday lunch, and she said, "Thank you for not asking me to bring the cake."
No, I quite like doing it. I mean, we were invited for a barbecue on Friday night, and I made a lemon meringue pie. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy doing what I do.
That's wonderful. That's what we all should do.
Absolutely.
Do something we're never to get tired of. How do you think your life might have unfolded if you hadn't made the move?
And we'd stayed in the UK?
Yeah.
Gosh, I have no idea. No idea. I love France. Would I go back to the UK? No. That's a definite no. I would like to spend the rest of my life here in France. I love the fact that France is such a diverse country. I love the fact that it produces the majority of its fruit and vegetables, things like that, which are really, really important. That they have, amazing markets here. My favourite shop is Grand Frais.
To close, let's talk about life on the Riviera. For many, it's a place of glamour and escape, but behind the postcard image lies the rhythm of daily living. What does your Riviera life feel like today? Is life on the French Riviera as glamorous as it seems?
I think because we live in Châteauneuf, we are far enough away from the craziness of Cannes, the Croisette, or Monaco. One of the things that I heard when I first moved here was that the south of France is a sunny place for shady people. I prefer to kind of dip in and dip out of the coast. I really love where we live. I love the nature. You can go skiing, you can go to the beach, you can go for hikes, and you can avoid the unpleasantness, if there is any, here.
What's the most iconic place in the region, in your opinion?
I think the nature, actually. The Estoril, some of the museums. The Picasso Museum down in Antibes is accessible to everybody. Fragonard in Grasse, which has an amazing history. The Palais in Cannes for the film festival.
Any hidden gem of favourite place?
I think the location where we are now, it's easy to go to Italy, and it's easy to hop on a train. It's easy to drive anywhere. France is such a huge, huge country, so much to see.
How do you see the region evolving culturally or professionally?
I wonder whether if we had kept the shop, whether the cafe, whether it would be as it would be thriving now, because they've kind of redone their parking. The mairies of each of the towns in this area are very proactive, actually.
What would you say to anyone who's planning to come to France?
Do your homework, definitely. Do your homework and find out where you really want to live. This area, the south of France, the Riviera, is perfect for commuting between the UK and France and other countries. The airlines are really well served. But be aware, French people can be quite unwelcoming, and you can be seen as a foreigner. Oh, les Anglais. Make an effort. Make an effort to speak the language, to learn a bit of culture, and your children, you're doing your children a massive, massive favour by having them learn French. Make an effort to kind of blend in and integrate is a message that I think is really important.
Thank you so much, Suzanne, for sharing your journey with us today. It's inspiring to hear how you've built a business here on the Riviera, blending your creativity with the challenges and rewards of life in France.
Thank you very much indeed for having me.
Well, thank you. Suzanne's journey is a reminder that building a life abroad isn't about one single choice, but about adapting with heart and determination at every stage. If you'd like to discover more about Suzanne and the other incredible women featured on this podcast, head over to our website, livingthedreampodcast.com, where you'll find their stories and businesses highlighted. And if you'd like to support my work, you'll also find a link there to help me keep creating new episodes of Living the Dream. A heartfelt thank you to Claire Long, whose music adds warmth and emotion to every episode. I'm Cecile Liconnet, and this has been Living the Dream, French Riviera podcast. À bientôt!